Clear, the U.S. has the upper hand in the disputed Strait of Hormuz. The Trump team reportedly close to clinching a deal, a massive oil agreement with Venezuela. Axios reports it would involve access to Venezuelan oil fields that boast 90 billion barrels of proven reserves. Wall Street, the Dow down 36 points. NASDAQ is off 21. More details at srnnews.com.
I'm not one to say I told you so, but I switched to Pure Talk over a year ago, and ever since, I've been telling people there's no better wireless company out there. Well, a few months ago, a massive survey was conducted. 123,000 people were asked to rate their wireless carrier in 4 categories: coverage, support, data, and overall value. Well, the results are in. Guess which wireless company was the only wireless company to get 5 stars in every category? Yeah, Pure Talk. 5 stars, every category. To celebrate, Pure Talk is offering the first 3 months of any plan for just $15 a month, including their top-tier unlimited plan. No contract, no commitment, just a very inexpensive way to test drive the only American wireless company with 5 stars in every category. Just dial pound 250, say micro, and Pure Talk's U.S. customer service will take it from there. Again, pound 250 micro. And yes, I told you.
The following program is a paid advertisement and does not necessarily represent the views, opinions, or endorsements of Signal Hill Media Partners, its affiliate stations, or its advertisers.
Say what you want.
Welcome to We're Just Sayin' with Senator Vickie Sawyer. Join them each week as they provide the latest updates on legislation affecting North Carolina, from breaking down key bills to answering your live call-in questions. Senator Sawyer engage in meaningful conversations on the issues that matter most to our state. No matter your political affiliation, We're Just Sayin' keeps you informed and involved in the efforts to make North Carolina a better place for everyone. Welcome to the conversation.
Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for listening to We're Just Saying. I am Senator Vickie Sawyer here, and changing some things up first. I realize that a lot of people listen to us on the radio stations all throughout Western North Carolina, but a lot of people also listen to us on the podcast format.
That's right.
And I've been opening up the radio going, Good Friday morning, and I'm thinking, goofball. It may not be Friday morning when a lot of people listen to the show, but it is Friday morning to us right now, and it is also very exciting. So I am sometimes pride myself with the power of persuasion, and I think today's guest is an example to the power of persuasion. I have sitting with me a man who I adore, who usually sits right behind me on the Senate floor every time we're there. I sometimes feed him candy, but not often. I have the one, the only, Senator Mark Hollow with me today. Yay! Thank you, and welcome to the show, Senator.
Thank you for having me. And let me explain that candy.
Okay.
She has a large dish of candy on her desk, and I think that's so people will come talk to her. But if you do something good, she throws you a piece of candy. So I think it's some kind of psychological thing that she's doing to us.
Kind of like a bell ringing thing,
yes,
right?
That's right. I don't salivate every time.
Dogs.
Well, yeah, so
right.
you're a medical professional. I know that you've heard the Pavlov's dog before. No, I do not. It's not necessarily so people will talk to me. I am kind of like the ugly dog that
You know, she said not necessarily.
No, she's very valuable in the Senate.
I don't know. Sometimes I don't really think so. No, but Senator Mark Hollow, you are a joy to work with, literally right behind me on the Senate floor. He is, and the reason why I talk about the power of persuasion is you are a man of not a lot of words, but you say a lot of words when they're important. And so we have a whole hour for me to pull out as many words out of Senator Mark Hollow as possible. I think we're going to be able to do it.
So I'm a man of few words, and she comes after me to be on the radio show.
You're definitely out of your comfort zone.
Definitely.
But you're going to do great.
Sure.
I love the dry wit.
He's waiting to see how great.
Yeah, aren't we all? No, So you have a different perspective about service in the General Assembly in Raleigh because you have been around in different iterations over different time periods. So, I was looking up your bio. I remember, when we had members that move over that were former House members to now the upper chamber, right? I mean, the better chamber, the Senate. We always make a joke, like you guys are former House members, you're reformed House members, all those funny back and forth things that I think are funny, but some people take personally. But I realized your service goes back before Republicans were in control. When was the first year that you actually began serving in Raleigh?
2005 and 2006, the one term.
Mm-hmm.
And I was defeated for re-election by a popular former sheriff.
Oh, sheriffs are tough.
And they are, and he'd been in the sheriff's office for probably close to 30 years.
Yeah.
But that was back when Democrats were in control, and it was completely different. When I returned to the House in 2011, and that was the first time the Republicans took control since the mid-1800s of the House and the Senate both. Mm-hmm. And it was quite different. It's a lot more work when you're in the majority party.
So I was at a event last night, and former Senator Howard Bryan was there from Iredell County. He served back in the late 90s, early 90s, late 80s. And he was talking about how they used to have a Republican get-together of two. That was all they would show up. Do you remember how many Republicans were serving in the House when you started in 2005?
It seems like in 2005 it was pretty close to even.
Yeah,
House.
Okay.
I was there the second term when it was we had 4 members less than the Democrats. So there was a little bit of sharing of power with the Speaker and the Speaker pro tem.
Yeah.
But it was still well established that we were the minority party.
Yeah. So I'm assuming you don't have to put words in. I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I could assume that when we're on the Senate floor and you hear folks that are in our minority party wage some complaints about process in the Senate, that you may have a flashback to a time in 2005 where you were feeling the same way.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Democrats were in power, and the only good thing about being a minority party is that we got finished at 4 or 5 o'clock, and we go have supper. They were in power, so they had a lot more work to do. And now, of course, we have that now, but it's certainly different to be in the minority party.
Yeah. I was looking back and what happened in 2005. I love history, right? Recent history, old history, new history. So we're making history right now, getting Mark Hollow on the show for a whole hour. And the big topic in 2005, I don't know, Ron, you're too young to maybe remember this being as a political battle. One of the biggest political battles in 2005 was the state lottery.
No, I remember that.
You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So North Carolina was the last East Coast state without a lottery. And there was a 20-year debate, I guess, moving forward to this. The House had passed a lottery bill by 2 votes in April. It stalled in the Senate, then passed late in the session, and then Lieutenant Governor Beverly Perdue was the tie-breaking vote in the Senate. Mm-hmm. No, I'm wrong. Am I wrong? No? Okay.
No.
Well, I guess it's my show, so I can be wrong. Okay. Now,
it's been 20 years.
Tell me about that when you guys were there. What was that even like to be a member talking about the state lottery?
Well, I voted against it.
That doesn't surprise me.
Well, and the reason I voted against it, I didn't think that education should be funded by gambling. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think the government should be involved in gambling. Mm-hmm. So I voted no. And here's how the vote went in the House. If you want to hear a little tidbit.
I would love to.
Yeah.
Tell me it all.
Well, as you know, the second and third vote has to be on separate days when there's money coming into the state. What's their taxing thing? And so the speaker at the time, Democrat, called. First of all, they were counting people in their seats, make sure they had enough votes to pass it, right?
Okay.
So the day came that they had enough votes, and so they brought it up. It was the second vote. And we voted, and it passed. And then instead of waiting for the second day, the speaker said, without objection, it'll be heard a third time. And we objected in our microphones.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was loud, objection.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, hearing none, it'll be heard a third time.
Really?
So that's how it passed the House.
Really? Did you get up and say, I will not yield. I will not yield.
No.
Remember Deb Butler doing that a few years ago? You didn't rush out and run to the phones and tell everybody how the process had egregiously taken advantage of you or
Then it
anything?
went to the Senate,
Uh-huh.
and I think one member had some health issues and was out,
Mm-hmm.
Republican,
Mm-hmm.
and one was on his honeymoon.
Uh-huh.
And so they had the votes there as well. So that's how we got the state lottery.
Wow.
And isn't that great to hear from someone who was actually in the room?
And you were right. It was Lieutenant Governor Bev Cordue that cast the deciding vote.
Who casted the deciding vote in the Senate to pass the state lottery. Now, some of the objections that I'm assuming that you had back then, other than just the moral objection of funding education through sin, is that the money over time will be either bifurcated or supplanted and taken not directly into education. Like that was what I understood to be one of the fears of that.
Well, one of the fears was what they've done in other states. They say it's an educational lottery, and they put the money in education, but they don't tell you that what's in there, they're taking out. So, some goes in and then some goes out, and it's not as great as people think, and it's it's not a guaranteed source of income either.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how can you plan for education, for buildings and pay and all that on something that isn't a guaranteed income?
Mm-hmm.
So I just didn't think it was a good way of paying for schools.
Yeah, well, so 20 years ago, you kind of were right. So I checked out on the numbers a little bit about what's happening in the education lottery today. Former Representative, current Senator Mark Hollow may have had something to it. So right now, the lottery's own website, they said about 75 cents of every dollar collected actually gets returned into prizes and overhead. 16 cents goes to education. So in fiscal year 23, about 23% of the sales. In 24, it dropped down to 20% of the sales went to education. In 25, it dropped to 16% of the sales went to education. So we are seeing a decline in the sales for lottery going to education. And this is 2025. And for those of you who had concerns about to know in 2005, you may have been onto something.
Yeah, it pretty much came to fruition, just like we thought it would.
Yeah. So what he's saying is Mark saying, just stick with me, kid. I got it. I know what's going to happen. Just listen to me when I do finally talk and say something. Then I know what's going to happen. Now, I know some people who listen to this show is going to take issue with those numbers because they'll say, well, costs have gone up. They've created new games. There's, all of these other what if factors. But the honest thing is that it is education lottery, and yet we still have gaps in education funding. And so the point where you were saying money goes in and some is shifted out and used to other areas could be a concern. And I know we've had other senators who have, and House members too, have really been having a concern with education lottery. So I guess I'm assuming you don't put anything down on black or red. You just kind of let that go. You don't go to the gas station every week and put $20 down on.
Actually, I've never bought a lottery ticket.
You haven't? Well,
out of principle.
Good. Okay. Kind of like I try not to use the toll lanes. I said try. That doesn't mean I don't get them, but I try not to. Well, good for you for standing up for your principle. No, I guess you know what? You do gamble because you put your name on the ballot.
Yes.
Maybe you have enough.
Every 2 years now.
Every 2 years you put your name on the ballot, and your name will be on the ballot again.
Right.
And you have a fundraiser coming up in Raleigh too, correct?
I do.
You do. All right. So if you're out there listening to Raleigh, you can come and support Mark. Tell him how great of a job he did on the radio show after, because he's probably, I see the twinkle in his eye. I think he's getting ready to bust me on something. All right. So that was 2005. Now, fast forward, then you came back in like the most historic, in recent memory, the most historic legislative session, because as you said, Republicans took control since Reconstruction. They had not had control of at least the House since Reconstruction. And here you are, and now you can't go and eat dinner with your buddies at 5 p.m. anymore.
That's right. Maybe a little longer now. Yeah.
And you were still working as a physician. We'd be remiss. It's not like you just have been a legislator your entire career. You actually have a amazing, fantastic service to people as a physician's assistant. Tell me a little bit about that.
For about 40 years, I was a PA in family practice mainly. But you're right. When I was in Raleigh in 2011, 12, 13, 14, I was trying to, I part owner of the practice as well with 3 others and had 8 providers and staff of over 40. And my income was going down. But yeah, I still had my share of the overhead to pay. And so I decided not to run again at that time. And then once I've retired, I have more time to commit to the Senate, to the General Assembly. But, a lot of people will tell us, especially during negotiations for the budget, to take a pay cut. They think that we make 170-some thousand like Congress does. We have all the benefits. But our salary is $13,950.96 a year. And the last time that was increased was 1995. So when people fuss about needing a raise, I understand that. And I don't disagree with you. But, legislators don't do it for the money. And I think people are down there for the right reason, for the most part. There's some self-serving and probably in both parties. But I think the opposition is there for the right reason. I just disagree with their positions. But I think the majority of people are trying to do what's best for the state.
Yeah, I agree. That is really well. Now, speaking about the whopping $14,000, don't forget about our mileage reimbursement rate.
Yes.
Set at the same time.
The federal rate is 72.5 cents a mile. We get 29 cents a mile. One trip to Raleigh and back a week. Doesn't make a difference. You have to drive out to your hotel or drive to a restaurant, eat supper or anything else. It's right to the front door and back home, and that's it, once a week. Even if you came home for a day or something or an evening for an event, you still have to get that big 29 cents a mile.
Yeah, and guess what we do? We keep signing up for it.
I know. We're slow learners. And I stay in a hotel, and I did get a pretty good rate, but it's $106 a night. Well, our daily rate that we get reimbursed is $104. So I'm paying $106 for a hotel room, plus I have to eat, plus I have to pay for the gas that the mileage reimbursement doesn't pay. So you don't go down there for the money or to get rich, that's for sure. But, you go down for the reasons that they can do some good for the state. Yeah.
And I think you can too. And one thing that was amazing that you guys did good from the state, from that historic, I want to go back to that 2011 session. I was reading through that session highlights because that was the first time you guys were able to write the budget. Now, remind you, they're doing this with really sore feelings on the other side. Like you had legislative staff, the central staff. Those folks were heavily engaged in the Democratic Party for years and years and years and years. And so now you get to write in the budget, but you also have support staff who may not be supportive of you. I can imagine how scary that was to look through and finally make decisions on things that you may or may not have the full picture on.
Right, and I was chair of the Health Appropriations Committee, and the staff was good, but a lot of times when you had another agency in speaking before the committees, you'd ask a question, they'd give a little answer. So you have to dig a little bit more.
Yeah.
Dig a little bit more. So it was hard sometimes to get from the other agencies that came in, like Health and Human Services or something like that, who are used to Democrats being in charge and hoping they would be again, and so they weren't very helpful. Now that's a generalization,
right?
There were some that were very good and all that, but they had to adjust as well because we governed differently than the others did, and they just need to adjust to that.
Yeah, I know. Before we were talking before we got on the show, I told Mark, I was like, "Well, do you want to give some inside detail about what it was like?" And he's like, "No, not really. No, I don't really." So I want to tell you one of the LAs that she just recently moved on to another job, but she was there during that time, and she was telling me how when they were in charge, you couldn't even have a full-time LA. All Republican LAs were only allowed to be part-time. Yeah, and go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was told at that time that legislative assistants, when we were out of session, you had to work, and this is the way I was told, you had to work 3 days a week to get the benefits and money to go into your retirement. So the majority of Democrat legislative assistants get 3 or more days a week to work. Republican legislative assistants, the majority of them, not all of them, but the majority of them, only got 2 days. So they didn't get money put into their retirement. They didn't get
that's right. And then so the girl part of me, because I was digging for more information, she said they would hide things as simple as staplers from the other. So because of course they had to move offices and stuff. So the legislative assistants would go in and try to set up the Republicans, majority leader and all this, so obviously they're going to get really nice. Come out of the basement per se for their office placement, so they would hide the staplers and wouldn't tell them where they were. No idea. There was no help. They were just blind, just trying to figure out because they'd only worked for 2 days a week and they weren't allowed to know where all of the supply rooms were. I mean, it was a really big deal when you guys took over.
Well, they not only hid the staplers and things, but they hid some legislators, some Republicans. I mean, literally in a closet. One of them got literally he got a closet. Wasn't enough room in his office for a desk. He had a love seat couch to use, but he had beat someone else's friend in the race, and they were holding it against him.
Oh, it's so funny.
So it was interesting.
It's a good time.
But we're still in.
Yeah, I know.
We're doing good things.
Yes.
Back in when we took control of the General Assembly in whatever that was. 2011, excuse me. And, personal income tax was 7%.
That's right.
And now it's down to 3.99 as of January 1st. And then this next January it goes down to 3.49. So, so people have got a big tax break in there, from 7% down to what it is going to be January 1st. Plus we have an amendment coming up to vote on this November for constitutional amendment saying that the tax can never go up higher than 3.5%.
That's great. That is so great. The something else that you did, which I could imagine. Oh my gosh, I don't know how you guys sat through this. You guys lifted the statewide cap on charter schools.
It was at 100 at that time.
It was at 100 at that time, and I could only imagine the battle that must have been.
It was, and I think, if I remember right, it's been a long time. I think we just raised it a little bit initially, and I don't believe there's a cap on it. I think it was 110 then, or 120 or something like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't raised very much, but it was incremental, and we finally got it to where it is now.
Yeah, I know the battle over opportunity scholarships and the calling. The call to action and everything that they had over just allowing folks to get a scholarship to go to a private school. I could only imagine what it was like for that charter school debate. Because that's their honey. Public ed is their honey hole. So
it was rough.
Yeah.
But as far as opportunity scholarships talking about now, those are in place and they're helping a lot of people get out of some underperforming schools or somewhere that kids just can't excel like they would be able to. So those are available now. The opposition will tell us and will tell everybody that, well, that's not, we're taking money out of the public schools. That's not the case. Spending appropriations this year went up considerably for schools. And so we're not taking money out of them to pay for these opportunity scholarships. This is an additional money.
Yeah, I agree. Something else that you guys did, which I think, so again, I love history. You guys actually started back in the day in that session, voter ID.
Yes.
And 20 shortly years, no, what is it? I cannot do,
Good match.
what was the one thing? Okay, so guys, just a little quick pre-run of the show. So Ron and I are sitting there, obviously Mark is an extrovert and excited about being on the show, and he wouldn't shut up. And so we were talking, and I said, Ron, tell him some things about the show. And he said, well, she has some Vickieisms. She doesn't do really well with transitions, and don't let her do out loud math on the radio. And I
You
just
would think after week after week after week, you would remember that.
I know. I just
You
can't.
would remember that.
I know. I failed again. My brain moves faster than my...
The filter doesn't catch.
No, my mouth moves faster than my brain. That is a bad thing.
So it took 15 years.
Thank you. Thank you for doing out loud math.
Putting that in place. And of course, there were lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. And we even tried to make it very easy back then. All you had to do was show your name on a power bill or something like that as proof of ID. But it was shot down. But, tried to be shot down. But we did get it in there. But it took, like I said, 15 years to really get it in place. And now we have voter ID.
Yeah.
Which just makes sense.
It just makes sense.
And this is just me being me, because I've never really been into politics a whole lot until recently. But was voter ID not voted in and then overridden or something at one point?
I don't know if it was overridden, but
We finally put it on the
called it or
Constitution.
something.
Yeah. I think we finally got tired of dealing with the courts, and then we went to the then it went to the vote of the people, and then it went through the courts again, and then it was deemed constitutional. It was just a mess.
I thought we had voted it in at one point. And
Yeah. But all the arguments, that we use is you have to show an ID to get on a plane and so on and so forth. But what really got me is every once in a while there'd be a meeting at the governor's mansion. Now we're legislators. We walked over there and we had to show a photo ID to get into the governor's mansion to the meeting. So I'm the governor's mansion behind that big tall wall.
Yeah.
They don't believe in walls.
Yeah.
With all the security everywhere. Yeah.
It's funny. Yeah, so 15 years long years later, we got voter ID, but it is fun. And then also one of the big things, because when you guys, we've got a couple more minutes left, I'll be real quick about it. You guys inherited a huge deficit in the budget. And in fact, when you took over, you guys had to make up the budget. Teachers' pay had been furloughed and in some instances decreased, and they hadn't had a pay increase. You guys have this huge loan to the federal government, and Medicaid spending was out of control.
Right. Yeah, it was over $2 billion we owed back to the government, the federal government, and it was costing a lot of money and interest and all that. So we had to correct that, and that's been paid off. Our rainy day fund, when we took over, had $100 million in it. $100 million. It sounds like a lot, but it's not. Now we have $4.2 billion with a B in the rainy day fund, and it shows with the hurricane, we spent how much out of that? Over $1 billion.
Yeah.
And we're putting more money out in the budget into hurricane relief. But if we had not had that, we would have had to raise taxes or borrow the money and pay interest on it. So it's good to have the rainy day fund, and we've built it up, and we've kept it built up for that very reason. And we're going to get hurricanes again sometime,
right.
And other natural disasters or whatever, and it's good to have that money.
Yeah, well said. Well, we are here with Senator Mark Hollow. I am Vickie Do Not Do Out Loud Math Sawyer. I want to thank you for listening to We're Just Saying. We'll be right back after the break.
I learned patience from my adoptive dad. All he had to say was,
"Hey, you got this. Just breathe." Hey, we're pretty good.
yeah.
Might have to start a band.
I got it.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
All right, son. Time to put out this campfire.
Dad, we learned about this in school.
Oh, did you now? Okay. What's first?
Smokey Bear said to.
First, drown it with a bucket of water, then stir it with a shovel.
Wow. You sound just like him.
Then he said,
if it's still warm, then do it again.
Where can I learn all this?
It's all on SmokeyBear.com with other wildfire prevention tips. Because only you can prevent wildfires.
Brought to you by the USDA Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to We're Just Saying. I'm Senator Vickie Sawyer sitting here humbly in front of Senator Mark Hollow. You want to know why?
Why's that?
Because I kind of messed something up a couple of years ago.
Uh-oh.
So here it is. I would like to formally apologize to my lovely, amazing friend, Mark Hollow, whom I didn't know until you actually got sworn into the Senate. But, Ron, this is what happened. All right, so there's been this race. The current senator was retiring from the Senate, and he lived in Hickory.
Uh-huh.
So that meant that there was an open seat. And there was someone in Raleigh who called me and said, hey, your radio show kind of bleeds over to this district, and it's on the podcast format. Would you kindly have, at this point, we're just going to call her the loser, on your show? And I was like, well, okay, sure, I'll have this candidate known as the loser now on the show. So I call, and we are having the conversation. I had been purported that she was going to win, and she's going to be great. Now, meanwhile, her opponent was the winner, Senator Mark Hollow, to whom, after the fact, I had extended an invitation to be on the show. And in fine Mark Hollow fashion, he ghosted me. I am sorry, Mark Hollow, for having your opponent on the show.
Well, in all fairness, I declined to come on the show.
Yeah.
And she came on and she lost. So I'm thinking I made the right move. Now I'm concerned about my reelection.
You're going to have to come back regardless.
No, wait a minute. Maybe he said he shouldn't be on. Then maybe this is a battle.
That's what I'm saying. Regardless, you're going to have to come back just because.
All right. So if you want to support Mark Hollow in his reelection campaign, you too can find him at markhollow.com and support him financially, or please help him not to lose this session. Hey, thank you for coming back on the show. I'm sorry.
You've got a ways to go yet. That club didn't quite do it, but okay.
Okay, so then now we're going to move to the part of the show where I talk only good things about Mark. So, Mark, you moved down from Illinois.
Yes.
And you have a degree in medicine, namely a physician's assistant, as you mentioned.
Right.
40 years?
Yep.
In the Catawba area?
I actually went back to my hometown and worked for 7 years, and that was difficult. I went to Bowman Gray, School of Medicine at Wake Forest.
Yeah.
And back then, there were 400 applicants for 40 positions, 40 slots. And so it was very competitive. And I'd applied to 4 schools, interviewed at 3, accepted into 1.
Wow.
So I decided where I was going to go.
Yeah.
And I came out here and went to school. My wife was a nurse in the emergency room at Baptist Hospital while I went to school. And then went back to our hometown of 7,000 in the Midwest in Illinois. And that was very difficult because I have 6 brothers and a sister. And so you know everybody in town. And everybody knows you.
Yeah.
And it was just a little awkward to see patients who you went to school with or you just know.
Yeah.
And one lady objected because I was her paper boy. I said, well, I was 12 at the time. But so anyway, so after working my hometown for 7 years, and I was on the school board there.
Oh, wow.
And the Red Cross board, and I was very active in different things.
Mm-hmm.
But we decided we enjoyed North Carolina when we were here, so we moved back in 1990.
Okay.
And so I've been here longer than I was in Illinois.
Yeah.
And I've done some genealogy, and some of my relatives came from Western North Carolina and then into Tennessee and then to Illinois. So I'm really just coming back home.
Yeah, okay. Really? That is very interesting.
Yeah, but it's, so I've enjoyed it here.
Yeah. So I'm in Winston-Salem. High school. I graduated from Winston-Salem anyways. And I think I've told everyone on the show before, I used to pretend to be like a college student when I was in high school, and I'd go sneak on the Wake Forest campus and go to the library and think that I was like hot stuff. Really, I was just nerding out reading their cool books because I didn't have anywhere else to go because I had no money. But it was a little different now. I don't think I could sneak on and pretend to be a Wake Forest student. So then you come back here, you had your physician's assistants, you were in a practice, you said you had 3 other partners, and you said you finally retired because you really stunk at retiring. So you got out of the practice, but then you picked up a side gig, and then you would go work here. And you said urgent care, and then finally you just said, I'm just going to let my license go, so I will finally retire.
That's right.
Which was really sad for me because I was telling him about some aches and pains I had earlier. And I was like, well, do you still have a license? He said, no, I cannot help you.
Well, I tell you, when I was in the house, I actually saw members of the House.
Oh, yeah.
Republican and Democrat.
Yeah.
Just members, because they're all away from their homes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd do a little note and everything, and I'd see them for, little things, sore throats, sinus infections, things like that were simple.
Yeah.
And like I said, I did it for the Democrats as well as the Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I tried to retire 3 times, and I was in family practice and owned part of the practice. And then I decided to retire, and then someone said, well, I'm starting up urgent care. Would you help out? Well, I said, I'll work 1 day, every Monday, 12-hour shift, no weekends, no holidays. That lasted about a month. And then I was, somebody called in sick. Can you work? Can you work Thanksgiving? Can you work? And so I said, I think I'm dead.
Yeah.
And then they recruited me to work in a family practice in Hildebrand for a couple of years. And then I retired again. And
so what I'm hearing is you're bad at retirement because you retired from your healthcare profession and now you're a senator, which you get part-time pay for a full-time job. So
smart, huh?
Yeah. Nah. Well, you started out, as elected as school board all the way back when you just graduated from college and was practicing early. So, you have a history of service, and that's just really something that is an amazing testament to your character and your time, and hopefully that part will help, plus the apology earlier about getting on your good side about the show. No, it doesn't look like it. Well,
when I was also on the school board, I was also in the Reserve, Air Force Reserve.
Oh, okay.
And so I also had that. So I was gone, 1 weekend a month and all that. And then when we moved here, I was in the Air Guard, actually, Air National Guard. Mm-hmm. And then when I moved here, I switched over to the Reserve. And so I was gone, doing that. In fact, I moved out here in 90, 91, of course, Gulf War was starting up. Oh. So I was then, I was backfilling for the active duty at Pope Air Force Base. And then the colonel came into my office, the commander of the clinic said, we're going to rearrange your life for a while. We're going to put you active duty. And the war went so quick and so fast that they canceled my orders. But I was seeing active duty members who, like I said, the active duty clinicians were pulled out and were on the way to the Middle East. And so they need to backfill and take care of the ones that were still there and retirees as well. So it was a busy time.
I can imagine. Sounds like it is incredibly busy. Well, I know what you haven't been busy with, but I am absolutely interested from your perspective. So Iredell County is similar to Catawba County in that we have two distinct school systems. And I know there's a push across North Carolina, has been, back in, I think in the 90s, was to consolidate school system down. If you say that in Iredell County, them's fighting words. I mean, fighting words. That is not going to, I would never, get into that. And really, that's not a senator's job to get into it. But I've been kind of watching from the side. Catawba County's going through that right now. I think in 2008, you guys are consolidating school districts. Is it two? You have three, right? You have three, and they're going to one?
Yes.
Oof. How's that going?
Well, there are a lot of people who are against it. There are a lot of people who are for it. I have not taken a side on it because you have two elected official groups. You have the three school boards, and you have the county commissioners. And that's up to them to decide what's best for the school system. And there is opposition. And I think now it's being reviewed by the Board of Education in Raleigh as to whether or not necessarily for them to approve it. My understanding is mainly to make sure that they went through all the steps they're supposed to go through. The public meetings and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So that should come down next month or so.
Well, wishing you guys all the luck in the world on whatever happens there, because school boards can be, as I know from first, can be pretty rotten. Now, speaking of schools, there's something that's really cool, and I do want to give a shout out to Attorney General Jeff Jackson. Actually, this week I looked down at my phone and I saw Jeff Jackson calling, and I was like, okay, wait, what? Do I answer? Do I not answer? Like, oh my God, what is going on here? I answered, and he was touting the success. And actually, I'm glad that, he and the governor actually worked to get this huge settlement out of these social media companies, or Meta, actually, to say, it's I almost liken it back to the day, like the cigarette settlement. Like, they knew that these things were doing harm to young children. And they really weren't putting any parameters around that for them. So this past week, they have come up with a settlement. North Carolina will receive $640 million over the next 10 years. This is a landmark settlement that was reached with Meta, which is the parent company of Facebook and Instagram. And they will also implement some really big safeguards to make our social media platforms safer for teenagers. So one that he kind of ran through this, so I wanted to make sure that I had gotten it right. But one is a 2-hour daily time limit that's accumulative across Facebook and Instagram. So it's not like 2 hours on Facebook, 2 hours on Instagram. It's 2 hours total on either one of those platforms for kids. There's also, which I think is awesome, there's also a night mode that will block access to the account between midnight and 6 a.m. I argue it should be probably 9 and 6 a.m., but hey, they got what they could get. They're going to mute notifications from those two platforms between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. on weekdays from August 15th to June 15th. So no notifications from those two platforms, Facebook and Instagram. Probably Instagram, because I think Facebook's kind of like for us older folks. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to get on this Instagram. Anyways, I like my Facebook. But anyway, so those will be muted during the school day. The scrolling pauses designated to discourage children from scrolling through their feed and through videos without a break. So there's going to be a pause in the scrolling so that you would have just not doom scrolling over and over.
Well, I've noticed, because I'm bad about the doom scrolling thing too, and it'll pop up now and ask you, are you sure you want us to continue watching?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it says you're supposed to get one of those every 15 minutes of continuous usage. and then at 60 and 90 minutes.
That means I've been on my phone for
Ron.
After a long day at work. So.
Okay. And there's others, but they are going to, hide some of the number of likes and also disable cosmetic surgery and extreme makeup filters. So they can't show like that everybody's like not themselves. Everybody's not a Barbie. Everybody's not,
right.
Selena Gomez or whatever. I know that was an old reference. Add that to something I shouldn't do is make references right there. But, we were talking about this, and that's going to be a considerable amount of money back into the General Assembly. We were talking about educational funding earlier through the lottery. I mean, this may be a nice little bump into some mental health or something that we can do for kids in schools and education, or at least that was what the ask was that Attorney General Jeff Jackson had made when he calls to say, can we look at something to do with this money for mental health for children?
Yeah, well, we did put some restrictions in, was it last year, that kids couldn't have their cell phones on them in school, which I think, teachers love that. I think, and students like it. And so that has cut down a lot on distractions, bullying, and, things like that too. So that's one thing we put in place. However, with this settlement, my concern is it's one-time money, even though it's going to be over 10 years. Is that wherever we put it, it needs to be renewable. I mean, at the end of 10 years, we put into a lot of programs. We're going to have to come up with a way to come up with that money to continue those programs. But I agree. I think it ought to be in behavioral health and that because, the settlement was because of damage that is done. So we need to try to use that money to correct the damage that's been done and help these kids out.
Yeah, I hope that the states are able to collectively move towards other platforms, because my fear is that if just one is doing this and they're just going to scurry over to Snap or scurry over to TikTok or another platform that's not going to limit their usage, because for every rule you set in place, there's a way around it, I think. So hopefully, and I'd asked that question, and it seems that Attorney General Jackson had said that they were going to move towards, fighting and going against those other social media platforms. But, I heard something that gave me hope yesterday. Hope. So there's possibly a trend among children, my children's age and younger, where they're rejecting social media altogether because they have realized the disingenuousness. I said that right. I surprised myself. They realize the disingenuousness of what is online, and finally they think that it is fake. So, there's this whole counter movement of people who are getting off those platforms because there is no guarantee what you're putting in your mind is more than just garbage AI that was generated by a bot somewhere overseas for whatever reason, and then you're believing it. Hey, and you know what? Honestly, I kind of agree with this. At my age, there's only a finite amount of information I can put in my brain every day, and I don't remember 90% of it. Why am I going to put a bunch of junk in there from TikTok, which I do?
but you're going to remember those TikTok videos. It's the bad part.
That's the bad part. I know several of our friends who aren't even on social media and have campaigns, and I think their mental health's a little bit better. Are you a social media guy?
No.
I didn't know. Maybe you were a closet social media guy. I didn't know.
Go back to that settlement.
Mm-hmm.
The Attorney General of Florida, is not satisfied. Mm-hmm. And he's going to go after more. He said, what was it, $17 billion or whatever? Mm-hmm. Just isn't enough. And he went back to the tobacco settlement years ago that I think he said it was $200 billion.
Oh, wow.
So that was quite a thing. And what have we done with it? We put into a fund, a Golden Leaf Fund, right? Mm-hmm. That's one of the things. So that's ongoing. So, perhaps we need to do the same thing with this settlement. Mm-hmm. Put it into a fund and
endow it.
Yeah, and not spending all, but direct it where it needs to go as much as you can.
So Iredell County was a tobacco producing county, and I know Hickory to some extent was too, and that fund was set up to invest in those counties that were tobacco producing counties. And the Golden Leaf Fund has done some really good things, and I would just like to say I'm looking forward to you doing more good things in Iredell County. There are other counties that have had enough of your money. I want it here. I want it here. I've reviewed your spending. I see what you've done, and I appreciate your investments across this eastern part of the state. I'm welcoming it to the western part of the state. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing a little political dig or like a little like, hey, we're over here. We used to produce tobacco. Give us some more money. But yeah, I think you're right. If we endowed that money for some sort of, grant program for local, mental health things or that kind of stuff, I think it'd be a good deal. Now, your specialty is healthcare. I mean,
right.
that's your bread and butter, and you've seen and worked in North Carolina, both politically and at the professional level. Oh, are there any trends that you see coming down the pipe that are good or concern you? Or, I know prescription drug prices seems to always be an issue. Is there anything that keeps you up at night about healthcare in North Carolina?
Well, yeah, medications are expensive, but there are programs coming out that are helpful. There's like Good RX, and I think now it's a Trump RX and lowering prices. So that's helpful. But if you're on a specialty drug, it can still be very expensive. And some of the pharmaceutical companies, and they do help with that. When they can or when they want to. So that's an issue. For the budget, Medicaid is an issue. That's a very large expense, and we need to crack down on some of the fraud and waste and abuse of Medicaid funds. And that comes from both sides. It comes from the person falsifying their application. And it's not widespread, but I mean, it needs to be done to providers, billing for things they didn't do. That's also rare, but it does occur. So we need to get rid of the waste to make sure that money is available for the people who really need it. So that's one thing. The other thing is broadening of people's jobs. For instance, pharmacists, and I don't know if the pharmacists are behind this, but they want certain bills where they can do more. And some of the immunizations that they're allowed to was a good idea. But there was a bill this last year of wanting to allow them to do a fast test for a strep and then prescribe part. Well, the problem with that is there's no exam. You can have a lot of things that cause a sore throat. And it could be strep, it could be a virus, it doesn't need an antibiotic. It could be a peritonsillar abscess back there that needs drained. And the mononucleosis gives a sore throat. And if you're not doing an exam, if I do an exam, I find large lymph nodes and the strep test is negative, I'm going to do a mono test as well. And the problem with mono is that your spleen enlarges and your liver does sometimes too. And since it's not protected anymore, once it enlarges from underneath the rib cage, they can be injured easily. So you got to take kids out of PE and sports and everything else for a month until that spleen goes back down to normal. So that's why I'm a little reluctant to expand what different professions can do. We need to kind of stay in our own lane. I'm not knocking pharmacists, and do a great job. They're great partners in healthcare. But I don't want them in trouble either because they, they didn't do the exam, which,
Yeah. And, also there's this, for me, you hit on something about like maybe the fear of over-prescribing antibiotics.
Yes.
Especially through mail.
Yes. There's this thing now, they say it's urgent care in a box or whatever you're going to use in the middle of the night. Yeah, the problem with that is that I think there's 7 or 8 antibiotics in there. And it says it has a booklet with it and, how to do it. But, it's kind of expensive to get that kit. A few $100s, and people are going to think, okay, I took the antibiotic for 3 days, I'm feeling better, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to save some of that for next time. Well, what that does then is cause resistance, antibiotic resistance, and that's already becoming a problem. And then, for instance, in Mexico, you can go into a pharmacy and buy whatever antibiotic you want, I understand. And there's a very high resistance to antibiotics in Mexico. And so unless we develop new antibiotics and things like that, we're going to be in big trouble one day. And so I don't like the ability to get an antibiotic and use it yourself without really the instructions, either from the pharmacist or the provider.
When you described that behavior, I was like, that's what I would do. You know what I mean? I could see that because it's hard to get your hands on antibiotics. And you're like, I feel a little bit better right now, so let me just hold off on these and not finish it out. And if I get like a little sniffle or something, then I feel like it needs it, and then I may not even need it for the second time around.
Exactly. And if it's a bad bug, you're taking the antibiotic part-time or partway through, and then you stop it. And then it comes back with a vengeance, and that antibiotic's not going to work again. So there's a lot more to it than just testing somebody for strep and give them an antibiotic that's positive, don't give them an antibiotic that's negative. There's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
So being on the health committees is not necessarily always putting in bills. It's also stopping things that aren't necessarily a good idea.
Well, I mean, you're the only physician, assistant, doctor, nurse that serves in anyone that I know that has a healthcare degree that serves on the Republican Senate caucus, correct?
Right.
I look forward to you doing some really good stuff. I really do. Because I represent those dreaded insurance companies as an insurance agent. Like terrible, horrible people. No, I do not write health insurance. I do not. And I know there is a rub between providers and insurance carriers constantly. And it's supposed to naturally. There's always going to be. It's not like one's bad, one's good. They're all evil. There's supposed to be a give and take between the two. But it feels like, it would be nice to have a provider's point of view when we're having some of these discussions about rate payments, Medicaid reimbursements, those type of things, and to be in the room and talk about it, because it's hard to know unless you know, right? I mean, it's hard to understand what policy could be good or the ramifications of a bad policy that could be bad.
Right. Unintended consequences. But, from a provider's point of view, and part owner in practice at one point, it is amazing that a third party, not the patient, not the provider, can come in and say, here's what we're going to pay you. I mean, I can't go into the grocery store and say, I know that milk is $3, but I'm going to give you $1 and take it. So that's always been a surprise to me that they can do that. And, we had an insurance company come in and say, here's what we're going to pay you for these procedure codes. And so, well, that's pretty low, and you got, 40 employees and an overhead for the building. And they said, well, if you don't, we're already in talks with this company, this factory, that we're going to switch them over to our plan. So if you don't accept this, you're going to lose all those patients that you have in that company. So they play it kind of both ways in order to get you to accept their payment schedule. Yeah, that's what I thought. Very interesting.
Insurance companies. I told you that the Illuminati of the world. Hey, I want to thank you, Mark, for forgiving me for having not the winner on the show, for getting out of your comfort zone and driving over here to Statesville, North Carolina. I want to thank you so much for being my friend and allowing me to give you candy on the Senate floor. And I just want to thank you for being a genuinely good person and coming over here. So, guys, this is We're Just Saying, and we just finished up an awesome hour that Senator Mark Hollow actually talked all the way through. It was probably the most any of us have heard from him.
Did some very good comebacks there, too.
Yeah, I know, he did. He's got that little quick wit. You got to be careful about him. Come and get you. But thank you so much for listening to We're Just Saying. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I'm Senator Vickie Sawyer. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Say what you want.
Thank you for tuning in to We're Just Saying with Senator Vickie Sawyer. We appreciate your time and input as we discuss the issues shaping North Carolina. Stay informed, stay engaged, and we look forward to having you join us again next week for more updates and insightful conversations. Take care and keep participating in the conversation.
Real Country is 550 AM WAME.